Hi friends, we are discussing engineering physics. From the point of view of civil and mechanical engineering, deeper understanding of engineering concepts is basically depending on the understanding of one of the important topics of physics, what is known as mechanics. Now, the word mechanics is an interesting term. Now, if you observe our day to day life, we see or we come across the motion of various objects around us. For instance, moon is the action of changing location or position. The earth is rotating around the sun. The flowing of water, the walking of a human being or a creature, the flying of birds, the kids playing and running around us, animals moving. These are all examples of objects around us in motion. So, that branch of physics which deals with the study of motion of material objects is what is known as mechanics. That means mechanics is the branch of physical science which deals with the study of material objects both in rest and in motion. Now, the term rest and motion are very interesting. When do you say the object is rest? Now, here to understand mechanics, you already have studied something called kinematics and dynamics at your plus 2 level of undergraduation. Now, we have to interpret the concepts you have learned there in a different way at engineering level to further understanding the engineering subjects. So, normally, when do you say body is at rest? So, if it doesn't change its position with time, then we say the body is at rest. On the other hand, if the position of the body changes with time, then there is something called motion. That means there is a displacement, variation with time, or distance change with time. In either case, we can define what is meant by rest and what is meant by motion. To understand this, the great man Isaac Newton has introduced three basic laws of motion. So we have to understand under mechanics now the basic laws of Newton's laws of motion and try to interpret them in a mathematical way. So this is what I said. Study of material objects is what is termed as mechanics. Now you have to recollect Newton's laws. Suppose if you take Newton's first law, it talks about inertia, it talks about force. So first law gives the definition of inertia and force. Second law talks about relation between force and momentum. And third law talks about action and reaction. Now here, an interesting term is to be kept in mind. That is, any type of collision when it happens, it lies between the limits of elastic and inelastic collisions. That means no collision can be either perfectly elastic or perfectly inelastic in nature. We can say it is law of conservation of elastic collisions. Now we have to briefly recollect all these basic laws of Newton with respect to motion to interpret and understand mechanics. Now in this, when you talk about direction of the motion of the object, the idea of direction has got only limited importance when you discuss about one-dimensional motion, because there are only two possible directions in one-dimensional motion, the forward or backward. Whereas on the other hand, if you take two-dimensional motion or three-dimensional motion, many directions are possible. So therefore, it is very important to introduce a new physical quantity called vectors. You have got some idea about vectors and scalars at your lower level of understanding of physics. So, therefore, the study of vectors becomes very significant when we have to, excuse me, when we have to deal with the different positions and displacements of a particle moving in a plane or in space. So, here, therefore, he will introduce a term called gradient. He will also introduce a term called field, gradient of a field, curl of a field, divergence of a field, like that. So these terms play a very important role in physics as well as in mathematics. So before proceeding to the recollection of Newton's laws of motion and their interpretation from a mathematical angle, let me make you to recollect the basic terms we have come across, something known as scalars and vectors, and what is the significance of vectors. So certain definitions here I wanted you to recollect. Something called physical quantity. In physics, we come across a term called physical quantity. What is a physical quantity? Anything is a physical quantity. You are a physical quantity, I am a physical quantity. So universe is full of physical quantities. But to describe completely about a physical quantity, you need two things. One is called its value, which we call as numerical value, which I represented here as NV, and the other is called unit. Suppose if we say my height is 5 feet 5 inches or 5 feet 8 inches, the physical quantity height is completed only when you say it is 5 feet 8 inches. So you said 5 feet 8 inches. So carefully see, 5, 8, two numbers are there. Inches, feet and inches. So here 5 and 8 refer to basically numerical value. And feet and inches refers to unit. So if you want to describe your height, you just simply, if you say 5 is 11, it doesn't make any sense. But if you say it is 5 feet 11 inches, it makes sense. That means both numerical value and unit both are necessary to completely describe that quantity, then only it can be termed as a physical quantity. Similarly, weight, 60 kgs, 50 kgs. That 60 or 50 is the numerical value, kg is the unit. So therefore, a physical quantity mathematically can be recollected as a product of numerical value and unit. That's how you can define a physical quantity. This is already known to us. Now, there is another thing we have introduced, something called scalars and vectors. Now there we use the word, the numerical value, what we refer to here as magnitude. So if along with magnitude, it also will have a direction. So we defined scalar quantities. Physical quantities are again broadly categorized, as you know, into scalars and vectors. Now friends, you may be wondering about why am I touching all these things which are already taught in intermediate level. Is simply because to understand the mechanics, you need to recollect these basics. Without these recollection of these basics, mechanics cannot be understood. So therefore, quantities which are used in the study of physics, they are called physical quantities, and physical quantities can be classified into scalar quantities, are simply referred to as scalars, vector quantities and simply referred to as vectors. Now what are scalars we know? We studied that physical quantities which have only magnitude but no direction are what are termed as scalars or scalar quantities. That means they only have magnitude, no direction. They can be added, they can be subtracted, they can be multiplied and divided by ordinary laws of algebra. So scalar quantity can be completely defined by a number and a unit, simply in the case of a physical quantity, like speed, mass, temperature, time, volume, energy. These are all scalars. On the other hand, when you come to vectors, you studied as those physical quantities which can be characterized by both magnitude and direction. They are what are termed as vectors or vector quantities. So the vector quantities completely specify the direction along with the magnitude. Physical quantities like displacement, velocity, acceleration, force, momentum, electric field, all these things will come under vector quantities or vectors. Now, vector can be denoted by putting an arrowhead over the symbol. You already studied something called like this, a vector is represented. So, for example, velocity notation is like this. So, I will represent as vector v or simply vector v. This is how it is to be pronounced. Of course, by putting modulus to this, suppose if you want to get magnitude of this, you put modulus. That we already seen. It is denoted this. Now, in this case, suppose if I want to measure instantaneous velocity. Now, here mathematically I try to represent using differentiation. So, instantaneous velocity can be represented like this. So, here we say S is a displacement vector. So, position is changing with time. Change of position with time is nothing but velocity. So, mathematically we will represent it as d by dt of S. Of course, any vector can be graphically represented like this. A vector is represented graphically as a straight line with an arrow drawn in a particular direction. Here the straight line PQ represents a vector. The length of PQ gives the magnitude of vector in a proper scale. So the arrowhead from P to Q, it means the vector is directed from P to Q. So that's how the basics of vectors and scalars have to be recollected. Now I am introducing a term called field. So you have a scalar field, you have a vector field. What it is? The term field, it plays a very important role in physics. Mathematically, a field is a function that describes a physical quantity at all points in a space. Mathematically, a field is a function that describes a physical quantity at all points in a space. Therefore, the region in which the continuous function which specifies the particular physical quantity is what is called as a field. This field can be classified as either a scalar or a vector. So I am recapping. The term field plays an important role in physics. Mathematically, a field is a function that describes a physical quantity at all points in space. So the region, nothing but it is a region. So the region in which the continuous function that specifies a particular physical quantity is what is called as a field. This field can be classified as either a scalar or a vector field. Scalar field and vector field, they will come into picture. So let us understand scalar field. Scalar field has no direction, but it does have a specific location. It implies that the distribution of scalar quantity with a definite position in space. For example, the temperature of hot water in a container is an example of a scalar field. Scalar field of a scalar quantity is the region of a space that can be represented by a continuous scalar function of position or scalar point function, what we call. It gives a value of scalar quantity at each point in space and magnitude that does not abruptly changes in passing from one point to another close to it. So in scalar fields, there are series of level surfaces upon each of which scalar function has a definite constant value. For example, you consider a solid block of iron metal which has been heated at some places and cooled at some others. So in this, the temperature can vary from point to point. So temperature of any point of the block will be a function of xyz coordinates in Cartesian system. Or if you take in polar coordinate system, based on the choice, you will get coordinates as r, theta and phi. So therefore, temperature is the scalar field. The gravitational potential and electrostatic potential are also different examples of scalar field. Now, on the other hand, if you look at vector field, if the value of physical function at every point is a vector quantity, the field is a vector field. For example, the wind velocity of atmosphere, the gravitational force, and the electric field intensity. These are some vector fields. So, vector field of a vector quantity is the region of space which can be represented at every point by a continuous vector function of position, or is otherwise known as vector point function. That is, that function at any point can be specified by vector of a certain magnitude and direction. A value changes from a point to a point from the beginning to the end in the region of space. In this, a vector field can be mapped with a graphical representation by series of curved lines called vector lines or lines of flux or flux lines, what we call. If you take the examples of vector fields, like just now I told that wind velocity of a points in the atmosphere at any instant, distribution of velocity in a fluid, and the distribution of magnetic or electric intensities. These are all examples of vector field. So, having understood the scalar and vector fields, in mechanics we come across a term, what is known as gradient of a scalar. To understand gradient of a scalar, an operator is introduced, something called vector operator, what we call as del. Del is represented by this symbol. So we introduce a term called del operator. Suppose if phi is a scalar, so this vector operator del is operating on a scalar phi. That means del phi, if you represent, it is called gradient of the scalar field. So if you represent like this, using this vector operator on a scalar represented like this, this is what is known as gradient of the scalar field. It is represented like this. Sometimes it is called as grad phi, gradient. Remember, generally this grad phi is a vector quantity and is represented like this in terms of Cartesian system. In terms of partial differentiate derivatives, it is represented like this, grad phi. Grad phi is nothing but del phi or grad phi or gradient of scalar field phi. It is I into dou phi by dou x, j into dou phi by dou y, k into dou phi by dou z. So this is gradient representation using Cartesian coordinates. For example, if you consider the family of level surfaces for which any scalar like electric potential is transported by something like this along the t coordinates, where phi is a constant here, it is a constant, then we can represent the derivative of this like d phi. It is nothing but dou phi by dx, dou x into dx plus dou phi by dou y into dy and dou phi by dou z into dz is equal to constant. Like this you can represent. So therefore here phi is a constant, that's why it like this. Suppose if you are incrementing with a displacement, so the vector increment, displacement is represented either as s or r. Small displacement you represent as dr or ds. So earlier we have seen that is moving from P to Q. P to Q the object is moving, let us say. So if dr is in this, the vector increment is represented as dr starting from P on such a surface, it can be represented as dr is nothing but idx plus jdy plus kdx, kdz. Like that, the vector increment can be represented. Therefore, this if you substitute here, and then del phi dot dr will be what? Already we have seen this is del phi. And dr is this. So if you multiply that, del phi dot dr, that is I dot I into dou phi by dou x plus j into dou phi by dou y plus k into dou phi by dou z dot dr I dx plus j dy plus k dz. So you can just manipulate this by taking the common thing out. So that is equal to dou phi by dou x into dx plus dou phi by dou y into dy plus dou phi by dou z into dz. When phi is constant, d phi is 0. So from this equation, you can say that del phi dot dr equal to 0. So this equation del phi dot dr, it is evident that del phi is perpendicular. This is a dot product now. So if it is a dot product, when it will be 0? When it will be 0? When theta is equal, dot product means what? Modulus of this and modulus of this into cos of the angle. If the angle is 90 only, it can be 0. That means this equation, it is clearly evident from this that del phi is perpendicular to dr and therefore is perpendicular to the surface of the family that passes through the P. This is what is to be understood. Recapping, when this is 0 means derivative of constant is 0, therefore 0 means this is a dot product. Dot product is nothing but modulus of this into modulus of this in cosine of the angle. When it will be 0? When theta is 90 only. Na? That means del phi is perpendicular to dr. That means perpendicular surface of the family that passes through the P. We shall take it at another example to understand this further. Just now we have seen del phi is perpendicular to dr. That means at any point in a scalar field, the greatest rate of increase of field at a point will take place in a direction normal to the surface. Therefore, the gradient of a scalar field is a vector field, at any point of which the vector has a magnitude equal to the most rapid rate of increase of phi at that point. And it will be in a direction of this fastest rate of increase, that is perpendicular to the level surface. Therefore, this is an intrinsic property of a scalar field and it is independent of any particular system of coordinates. You can take Cartesian coordinates or you can take polar coordinates. Therefore, gradient del phi is an invariant. So, direction of del phi is usually taken to be that in which phi is increasing. Therefore, grade phi can be defined as gradient phi. The change in a scalar quantity, for example, phi, per unit displacement perpendicular to the surface of a constant phi. That is what you can define as a gradient. To understand further, let us take up another example. For example, consider S of x, y, z. It is a scalar point function based on 3 Cartesian coordinates in space. Therefore, when the values of dou x by dou x and dou s by dou y and dou s by dou z, these are all partial derivatives along the 3 perpendicular axes respectively. So, when you look at scalar function, yes, it can be represented as s equal to I into dou s by dou x plus j into dou s by dou y plus k into dou s by dou z. But in this, if you put I into dou by dou x and j into dou by dou y and k into dou by dou z as del operator, taking the common thing out, then s will become del s. Understood? So let me take up yet another example. Probably this could be the best example to have a concrete idea about gradient. Consider 2 points, let us say, in a 3-dimensional space, in a Cartesian system. When I say Cartesian system, unit vectors I, j, k will come into picture, remember that. So 2 points P and Q separated by a small interval delta R. Let us say temperature at this point is T1, temperature at this point is T2. So difference of temperatures is delta T. So there is a temperature increment graphically represented like this. So based on this diagram, let us see what we can interpret. So temperature at point P is T1, temperature at point Q is T2. So what is the difference of temperatures between the points P and Q? It is delta T. So delta T is nothing but T2 minus T1. Therefore, because delta T is a scalar and it does not depend on choice of coordinate system, what type of coordinate system you have taken. Is it Cartesian coordinate system or polar coordinate system? It is immaterial. So therefore we can choose conveniently the set of axes what we want. So therefore any coordinate system we can take. For example, temperature T1. It is represented like this T of x, y, z. And temperature T2, there is an increment. No? In both x and y, z directions, there is an increment of temperatures. For example, if you see this diagram, so temperature is increased. From P to Q when it is moving, the temperature is increased in all the three directions. So therefore, if you bring that concept, originally temperature is normal, x, y, z. Now there is an increment by the time it goes to Q. In x direction, y direction and z direction. Let us say, let it be x is becoming x plus delta x, y is becoming y plus delta y, and z is incrementing z plus delta z. This delta x, delta y, delta z are nothing but components of the vector delta r. In all the three directions, the increment is changing. So based on the theorem of partial derivatives or the differences in the values of t at two neighboring points, we can represent this as